This Friday, January 24th, NBA Betting Picks edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Welcome everyone to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Friday, January 24th, 3-game schedule here in the association on Friday. A little weird for Friday because we get at least 10 to 11 games on a Friday card, but I think a lot of them we have games on Saturday. But we'll recap what we saw in the association on Thursday night. Of course, get into each and every game on the Friday card, give you our lock and dog picks, and then we'll wrap it up with our Underdog Fantasy entry for the Friday card as well. But joining me here on this episode to help me break everything down happening in the association, you guys know him as the voice of the WNBA Gambling Podcast, Tennis Gambling Podcast, MLB Gambling Podcast, and of course here on the NBA Gambling Podcast, Scott Studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
They're doing pretty well. Was up pretty late watching tennis, same as usual. Can't complain. Only 3 games on the card, so once again, we'll see how competitive these games are. To be honest, there were a couple of games yesterday, and not many of them were good, if we're being honest here, because out of all the games we ended up having yesterday, I believe only 3 of them were decided by single digits, and Denver did a lead by about 20 for the entire game, and then the Kings cut it to 9. So you basically had 2 competitive games out of the entire slate yesterday. So if you took the favorites or you ended up just betting some win margin stuff, or even, once again, you just decided to kind of try to enjoy some basketball, you might have been a bit underwhelmed because there were a lot of games that were not very close.
Yeah, National Blowout Association was in full effect yesterday, starting early in Paris yesterday with the Spurs and the Pacers. Spurs get the 140-110 victory in the first game in the 2-game set that they'll be playing in Paris. They'll have a game tomorrow. I believe it's around 12 o'clock Eastern time between the Spurs and the Pacers. Wemby put on the show, finished the game with 30 points, 11 rebounds. There was a stretch there for I think it was 2-3 minutes where
it was the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, he just was going absolutely berserk. And it's going to be exciting to watch Wemby, of course, as he progresses through his career and eventually I think does become, or maybe the face of the NBA, but definitely trending towards being a no doubt top 3 player. But got contributions from some other guys in that game as well. Harrison Barnes, your guy, Scott, had 20 points in that game, chipped in with 7 rebounds. Terrell's guy, Devin Vassell, 25 points in that game in 31 minutes. They got some contributions off the bench there as well. So we'll see if the Pacers can avenge their loss from the Thursday game on Saturday in Paris. We were missed, not to mention what Jokic did last night against the Sacramento Kings. Outside of the 3/4 court shot that he just casually decided to swish, not even use the backboard, but he finished the game with 35 points, 22 rebounds, and 17 assists. I was hoping that he would get 20 assists and we would get a 30-20-20 game for him, but good enough. It's funny, Scott, because I played his RA yesterday to go over. It was 21.5. He just got it done purely with the rebounds. But Denver was my lock last night as their team total went over 120. I think it was 125.5. They score 132. So those are obviously the big points for me last night. Anything caught your eye from last night?
Joker's where you got to start.
Yeah.
We're looking at an MVP race, which is arguably over because Shea's minus 600 at the moment. Shea drops 50 plus against the Wizards. He finally drops 50 in a game. And Joker says, you know what? I took it personally. And he ended up dropping 35, 22, and 17. So Joker, I think, is the best player in the world. I've mentioned it many times before. The reason why I do talk about him so much is because I recognize that he does things I've never seen before. And I feel like Joker, you can argue, I know LeBron is the all-time leader in points now, and LeBron's arguably the best of all time. I'm not going to get into that whole argument with Jordan right now. You can make a serious argument that Joker is the best offensive player to ever play in the NBA. Like, you can make a serious argument about that, and I might be inclined to agree. I've mentioned it before. I think in my lifetime, I missed Jordan's basically his entire prime.
Yeah.
I do think that Joker is the second best player I've ever seen. He might be the best offensive player I've ever seen. And I feel like he does things on a night-to-night basis that you just can't even be mentally prepared for. So I feel like at the end of the day, Joker had another just a monster game, a masterclass game. And I feel like we weren't really surprised because he does this all the damn time. And if you go through his numbers over the last 9-10 games, his numbers are absolutely insane. So
yeah.
I feel like he's single-handedly carrying Denver into relevancy in the top 4 or so of the Western Conference. Now, I get the argument is that Shea is a player on the best team who's having a monster season as well. I'm not roasting Shea. I recognize that Shea is having a phenomenal year, and I get that some people think he should have won MVP last year. There is some type of, I don't want to say agenda, because that makes it sound like he doesn't deserve to be MVP, but there is some type of makeup agenda that is being somewhat promoted amongst, let's say, NBA media. Regardless of who wins MVP, Joker's the best player on the planet, and it's not very close.
I think a lot of people last season felt that SGA was supposed to win MVP.
Luka last year as well. It's an argument, but people thought that Joker was a bit undeserving last year. I'll let you continue your point, but I think we'd agree Joker would be deserving this year if he got it.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like you mentioned, right, Shea the other night, career high 54 points for him, leading his team right now as the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. I think last year we saw Mark Dagnall get NBA Coach of the Year. So I don't remember last time we seen a Coach of the Year and MVP on the same team in the same season. Maybe that had a little bit to do with it as well. But you're right. I think that for Joker, the way that he's able to impact the game offensively, not just with his scoring, but the way he's able to rebound, in particular offensive rebounding, getting the assists, finding his teammates, something that I don't want to say we're not going to see ever again, but at least it's right now, it's something that's a breath of fresh air and it's really fun to watch him. And he just makes it look so effortless. I think you and I have talked about this multiple times with Jokic, that it's just really fun to watch him. And there's just always a significant drop-off when he leaves the court for this Denver Nuggets team. And the eye test proves that. The stats and the advanced numbers prove that as well for Jokic. So, hopefully we have him around for, many more years just to get to watch him, because Jokic is that type of guy, Scott, that you and I could agree that he could just be like, all right, I'm done. I'm just going to go back to Serbia and just, race my horses and just retire there. And that'll be it for Jokic. But yeah, dominating performance for him last night. Before we continue the conversation here from last night, in honor of the big game, from now until February the 9th, you get 15% off of everything in the SGPN merch store with the promo code Big Game. Check out the NBA Gambling Podcast gear with its t-shirts, hats, hoodies, coffee mugs. Make sure you guys get over there, store.sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Again, 15% off of everything in the merch store with promo code Big Game. Anything else from last night, Scott? I saw did see the Lakers get a victory, convincing victory, dominating victory, 117-96. And I think that for the Celtics, maybe they dug their own grave, at least in that game, because they got pushed to overtime by the Clippers the other night, who didn't have James Harden, Norman Powell, Kawhi Leonard, Zubac, and still found a way for the Clippers to push them to overtime. Luckily for them, they did get the victory to the Celtics, but I think it's been a theme for them, like in the second half of games, where offensively they just haven't been able to put it together. So I guess you could say a nice victory there for the Lakers, but that was the only other thing that really caught my eye from last night. You have anything else?
Yeah, I was going to go from the Celtics perspective here, which is this team is concerning me. Now, I know the counterpoint is they just won a title. Who cares with the regular season? They'll still be a top 3 seed, most likely. Yeah. Who cares? Get them in 7 games and you like your chances. But this team has just really been underwhelming. And you could argue, once again, it could be a mental lapse where after winning a title, maybe they're just in hangover mode and they're just trying to maybe conserve energy, mentally speaking, for the actual playoffs. But Boston just isn't cutting it right now. It just feels like Boston is a team that, I don't know what happened last year, but it feels like the energy and kind of the magic that they had last year is just gone. That's kind of what it feels like right now. And I understand that Boston won a title, and we were waiting for Boston to get over the hump finally after they had all these expectations for about 10-plus years. They finally did it. I am wondering, I'm starting to wonder at least, maybe it's a little bit harsh, I am wondering if this is a one-off, or last year was a one-off, because from what I'm seeing this year, this is just not the same team we saw last year.
Yeah.
And I don't think right now, if they keep playing the way they're playing, they are good enough to beat the Cavs and the Thunder in I'd say a playoff run for back-to-back titles. So is that fair? Because yes, I know the playoffs are a different animal and maybe they're coasting, but it does concern me that Boston won the title last year with a pretty, to be honest, favorable draw.
Sure.
Just reading it off, like Boston was not challenged at all the entire playoffs last year. There are a decent amount of teams in the Eastern Conference that can be a bit tricky, and the Thunder are really good. And right now, I don't think the Celtics are good enough to get through all of those top teams to win the title for the second straight season. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're still sitting at 31-14. I think that some of it does have to do with maybe a hangover from winning the title last year. And I think coasting is, I think, the correct term I would use as well, that they know what you mentioned, that they'll end up as a top 3 seed. And hopefully everybody is healthy for this Boston Celtics team. If you're a Celtics fan and, just a fan of the sport, that you want everybody healthy. But, last season there was a lot of injuries, especially in the Eastern Conference, that Boston was able to coast to the Eastern Conference Finals and eventually to the NBA Finals and win it. But I think they're just coasting right now. Again, they had guys sit in that game against the Clippers. I don't want to say they're not taking it serious, but I think it's something along the lines of, hey, let's get into the playoffs as a top 3 seed. And, hopefully all of our guys are healthy and come out and beat us in a 7-game series. And I think that's maybe what their mentality is going forward. But again, they're still sitting at 31-14. If they were in the Western Conference as well, they'll be still the second seed right now.
The record's great in general, but it just feels like Boston, maybe it's only against bad teams, but it feels like they never cover. Yeah. They just let bad teams hang around. But I think it was concerning yesterday because the Clippers game was a perfect example of we don't care.
Right.
Because the Clippers benched everybody, and you figure, okay, Boston even sat some guys. This had Drew. I'm not sure if Porzingis played in that game. They decided, you know what, we have the Lakers on deck. We are going to overlook the Clippers. So, yes, the Clippers had no talent on the roster, basically, and the game went to overtime because Boston clearly was focused on other stuff. I don't know what they were focused on because they no-showed the Laker game, too. So, if you're going to overlook the Clippers, you figure, okay, at least you're going to show up for the game after against your arch rivals, and you got blown out of the building. So there was no travel involved because you were playing the Clippers in the same state a couple days prior. So that's why I'm a bit concerned for Boston, because it's one thing if you overlook a bad team and you show up against a good team, but you didn't show up for either game.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of confused what Boston's doing right now.
Yeah. So the Clippers game, they did sit Holiday, Horford, and Porzingis. I think Tatum and Brown were out there. But yeah, I think, again, for me, it's what you mentioned, is that, hey, let's just get into the playoffs for the Celtics.
Yeah.
And again, let's see if a team can, us as the defending NBA champions, can you beat our team in a 7-game series? And I think that's, really what it comes down to. But we talk about this on the pod almost on the daily, that anytime we see Boston as a double-digit favorite, it's almost turning into a system play for us that we just bet the other team, especially when they're on the road there. So,
well, I'm going to ask you, though, in a playoff series, yes, Boston could flip a switch. Would you take Cleveland with home court in a 7-game series?
I would still take Boston, just because I feel like the depth is still better for the Boston Celtics. I know they didn't have Porzingis for that second or this conference semifinals, and he came back for the conference finals, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe for the NBA finals.
He showed up in the middle of the NBA finals.
Yeah, and
I think it was game 1 of the NBA finals, actually.
Yeah, so I would still take Boston. I think that the inconsistencies of Donovan Mitchell would
Be enough to sway
make
the
me
series.
make me nervous. I think you put in a better term there, but with Boston, it was like last year. If Jason Tatum had a rough game, Jaylen Brown stayed up. If Jaylen Brown's, had a bad game, you had Drew Holiday, Al Horford even had spots. So I think the depth overall, I just like it better for this Boston Celtics
Okay,
team.
so then who would you take, Celtics or a healthy Thunder team?
I'm still skeptical on the Thunder, as crazy as it sounds.
Okay. They can still make a move, so we'll see if the trade deadline changes anything. But it sounds like you're still taking Boston.
I feel like I would still take Boston. I still just need to see Thunder, number one, get back to the Western Conference Finals, which they will, and then just getting over the hump and getting
hopefully
to the
for them they don't
finals.
play the Mavericks, because apparently the Mavericks are the one team that just figured out how to beat this team. I don't really understand it, but
apparently them and PJ Washington, I don't have some type of vendetta against the against the Oklahoma City Thunder.
The point is, for me personally, I might actually pick a Cleveland Thunder final, and I just don't really know what Boston's doing. Playoffs might be different; they'll figure it out, but I don't think that they've done a great job of at least proving to me that I should trust them if they're going to be in what could be a 50-50 series, if they're punting home court in what could be two monumental series later on in the playoffs. That's my point.
All right. We'll put a pin in that. Keep an eye out for the Boston Celtics going forward. But before we do get into the action here for the Friday card in the NBA, NFL playoffs this weekend, of course. We've been talking about it over at the Mothership Show with Sean and Ryan. And get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple like a player to score 6. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your picks. New DraftKings customers can bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. Again, that's code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, let's get into it here for tonight. 3 games on the schedule. Start with the first game on the East Coast. We got the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are taking on the Philadelphia 76ers here tonight. Cavs are a 10.5-point road favorite here with a total of 228.5. Looking at the injury report, I'll start here with the Cavs. They will be without Karis LeVert. I'm sorry, he's questionable. Is Karis LeVert with a right wrist sprain. They will be without Evan Mobley, who's dealing with a right calf sprain, and Isaac Okoro is also out for the Cleveland Cavaliers. For the Philadelphia 76ers, players that are out will be Andre Drummond, Joel Embiid, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, KJ Martin, and that is pretty much it. Cavs laying 10.5 here on the road. Scott, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, it's really tough to back the Sixers on any given night. Now, for their, I'd say, injury report, surprisingly light. I'll put it that way. They don't really have a center. They got Yabusele at center, but you're looking at Paul George, who is not recording a podcast today. He should be back in the lineup. Maxi's playing, and you still have no Embiid. What else is new? Now, Drummond's also out, so you don't really have any center depth at all. But I think I got to go Cleveland. At least I know Cleveland can score.
Yeah.
The Sixers, I don't know if they really can. I feel like Sixers fans went into the season hoping that Paul George and Embiid would be, and Maxey would be a big 3. And like most big 3s, it has not worked out at all because Embiid and Paul George don't really play that much. And Paul George in particular has been arguably worse than Tobias Harris. Like, it's been really bad for the Sixers. So they're going to blow up the entire team at some point, or at least they're going to blow up the front office. I don't think it blow up the actual team because I don't know who's going to take that Embiid contract and who's going to take that Paul George contract. But they got problems. Nick Nurse's days might be numbered. I think that Morey should have been fired already, if I'm being honest. But I'm going to go with Cleveland. They have chemistry. They have depth. The Sixers have none of those things. I think that even though the Sixers can be dangerous at home, they need Max to have a monster game. They need Paul George to play well. It's really their only hope of actually being competitive in this game, and I don't trust either of those things to happen. So I'll go with the Cavs -10.5.
Yeah, these two teams matched up earlier this season in Cleveland. Cleveland with a 27-point victory, 126-99 in that game without, of course, Joel Embiid. Paul George played 27 minutes, 11 points, 5 rebounds in that game. Tyrese Maxey led the Sixers in scoring with 27 points in 33 minutes. But it was really the Darius Garland show, honestly, in that game. He had 26. Donovan Mitchell chipped in with 19. Mobley did play in that game, had 22 and 13. Like I mentioned, he'll be out for this game. But it's what you mentioned, right? This Cleveland team, I think, has a little bit more depth as far as scoring. That, again, if this Cleveland perimeter defense is able to slow down either Maxey or Paul George, then you're just really relying on Tyrese Maxey to be that guy here tonight, where Donovan Mitchell could have a big night, Darius Garland could have a big night, Jared Allen on the boards could have a big night as well. So Cleveland, once they get that sour taste out of their mouth after choking away, more in particular by Darius Garland against the Rockets the other night. So I think they can get back on track here. So yeah, I'm laying the chalk here as well, giving the Cleveland Cavaliers -10.5. You have anything for the total? 228.5.
For the total, I'll go over. With Mobley being out, I do think that Cleveland's defense might be a little bit worse, and offensively, I still like their overall depth. The thing is about the Sixers, if you do want to back the Sixers and you think 10.5 is too many, wouldn't you rather just take like maxi props?
Yeah.
Because if the Sixers are going to cover, you kind of know the script. You know that Cleveland will still score, and you know that Philly's probably going to have a monster game from Maxey. You could argue Paul George. I'll take my chances with Paul George, no offense, but I think Maxey probably needs to drop. I mean, I'm trying to think of like what stat line he needs to actually keep this game close. Like 28 plus points.
Yeah, he had 27 in the other game, but they still lost by 27.
Yeah, so that's kind of my point, is that I feel like I'd rather bet player props for the Sixers to actually keep the game close than back in the entire whole as a unit, because I think Cleveland's just much better.
Bear Commander picking up a pretty good point here. They do have the Rockets tomorrow at home, trying to get that revenge from the game earlier this week. I don't want to say it's a look ahead for them, but it is the first leg of a back-to-back there. So I think if it was maybe another opponent, I think that's a good point there. But again, this Sixers team is just so bad that I'm not sure I can really back them right now.
I would feel better. I would just feel better once again betting on a proven commodity like Cleveland than whatever the hell the Sixers are. So I feel like going in, you feel like you're at a disadvantage backing the Sixers without Embiid, because you know more often than not the team's going to underwhelm you.
Yep. All right. Next game on the schedule, we'll go with the Portland Trailblazers. They are in Charlotte to take on the Hornets. Hornets currently laying 5 points in this game with a total of 220.5. Looking at the injury report for the Portland Trailblazers, they do get that extra time to submit one because they did play yesterday against the Orlando Magic. A very convincing win for the Portland Trailblazers in that game, 101-79. They now travel to Charlotte to take on the Hornets here. For the Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo Ball is questionable. Miles Bridges is questionable. Seth Curry is probable. Cody Martin is probable. They did get the news yesterday that Brandon Miller is going to miss the remaining of the season with a wrist injury. He had surgery on it and will be sidelined for the remaining of this season. So a bit of a blow there for the Charlotte Hornets. Not really that they were going anywhere, but missing a top young guy like that, I'm sure hurts the team a little bit. But Portland catching 5 points here, Scott, in Charlotte with a total of 220.5. What's your thoughts on this one?
Portland money line. Why would I want to lay 5 with Charlotte? I understand Charlotte was able to beat the Mavericks, who have been a bit underwhelming without Luka. Again, except against OKC for some reason. They beat Chicago barely, beat Utah, but I don't think Charlotte's that good, and that's why they're 11-29. You're looking at them losing to Memphis by 12. They could have lost that game by 30. Like, they were getting destroyed in that game. So 12 was actually pretty generous because of what happened in the fourth quarter in garbage time. Portland, though, beat Chicago by 11. They beat Miami by 9. This team I still think is talent on paper. I think they're horribly coached, but I like their overall roster more than Charlotte. LaMelo might honor being an all-star starter snub by not playing. So we'll see if LaMelo suits up or not for this game, but 5. It's a pretty big number when Brandon Miller's out for the season. I'll go with Portland. They have more depth. I think that they have a little bit more talent on the overall roster. LaMelo, I know, would be the best player on the court with these two teams, but if we're going by the actual supporting cast, Portland has some guys.
Yeah.
I think this team's not that bad on paper, but once again, Chauncey's Chauncey, and that's a serious problem. But I'll go with Portland. I think I'll win the game. 5? It's a lot of points. I'll lay with a crappy team. I'll go with the Blazers. I do think, though, before you actually give your thoughts on the matchup, I do have to play the drop because these teams are really bad, and LaMelo might not play. So I think it's fair game to play the drop, right?
Yes, sir. Fired up.
Thou shalt not lay points in the toilet bowl. I'll take Blazers plus the 5. Give me one.
Yeah, added to the commandments of the NBA gambling podcast. Portland has actually been pretty good on the second leg of a back-to-back this season. They are 5-2 against the number, both full game and in the first half. Hornets, like we talked about, they are on the front leg of a back-to-back. They do play.
Well, Portland didn't play yesterday, by the way. So
Portland played.
Sorry,
they
beat
Portland.
Orlando. Apologies. Yeah, they won 3 straight. Sorry.
So yeah, Charlotte plays tomorrow night against the Pelicans. So that's maybe another toilet bowl game there. But first leg of a back-to-back, they haven't been very good. They're 1-5 straight up in those spots. 1-5 in the first half. 2-4 ATS in those spots. But yeah, it seems like these young guys for the Portland Trail Blazers are starting to play well, and I think that's something that I want to back here. I'm with you here. Portland money line, and obviously taking the points here with the Blazers. Yeah, Adam mentioning, I was looking for this last night, the Mark Williams props. I don't see him posted.
It makes
here.
sense because LaMelo is once again going to be the main guy in that offense. So I feel like he's kind of holding all the other props hostage right now.
Yeah, I mean, so the funny part is that the books always do this, that they'll put the props out for the player that's questionable, but the players that they know for sure that are playing, they don't drop the props just because they have to do that adjustment in case that he does get ruled out here tonight, does LaMelo Ball, and frankly, Miles Bridges for that matter as well. Anything else for Blazers Hornets here, Scott?
Once again, Mark Williams when stuff gets posted, but I'm going to have to wait that out. For Portland, they have so many options. I mean, I think Avdia can have a solid game. I do think he's a bit of a matchup problem for Charlotte, but just based on size, I do think that it's going to be tough for them to find somebody to match up on him on the boards. So I don't mind him there. Scoot, I think, can be solid, but I do think at the end of the day, you're looking at a Portland team that has a lot of different options, and Ayton might not play. So it is a great matchup for Williams in general. I see some people mentioning Time Lord for this game if Ayton ends up sitting. I don't mind that because Klingon is doubtful, so you might end up seeing a lot of minutes for Time Lord. I think that could be a fun matchup for, block, stuff like that, but I do kind of want to see how Ayton's status is going to progress throughout the course of the day. I'm assuming he's not going to play, because Ayton doesn't actually want to play basketball ever. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But Ayton missing would open up opportunities for other guys. I would look more towards maybe Avdia rebounds in his absence. But you can make an argument for a couple of guys who could be good on the boards. Like Kamara's pretty good on the boards too. Portland has a lot of guys that you feel like do similar things, but they're slightly different, if you know what I mean. But I feel like Portland just has a lot of guys that can step up. But my main guy would probably be Avdia in the spot, if I had to guess.
Typically, we've seen Time Lord sit, and if he's played in the first game, and then he sits in the back-to-back situation. So I think Ayton does end up playing in this game, but we'll see again. But my from experience watching the injury report and how they handle Robert Williams, that he'll play in one game. If they are on a back-to-back, they'll usually sit him in that second leg of a back-to-back. But again, keep your eyes and ears open for the injury report, at least for the Portland Trail Blazers, since they are on a second leg of a back-to-back here tonight. All right, before we continue the conversation here for the Friday night card, let me just tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus of all sports. Underdog is always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems. NFL, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you guys use that promo code NBA SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's proud partner, Rhythm, is the #1 AI sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build a model for you. The first ever NBA Rivals Week is here, the perfect time to capitalize on your Rhythm subscription and cash in on the awesome matchups we have this week. Rhythm's data-backed predictions account for recent player performances, injuries, and player and team trends to ensure that you have everything you need to know when placing your bets. Whether it's NFL picks, NFL props, college basketball, and NBA, Rhythm, honestly, they have it all. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Scott, last game of the night. It's going to be the New Orleans Pelicans. They are taking on the Memphis Grizzlies here tonight. Grizzlies currently are a 10.5-point favorite with a total of 244.5 now, I see. On the injury report, I'll start here with the Pelicans. They will be without Brandon Ingram, of course. Herb Jones, DeJounte Murray, and Missy are probable. Zion is out here tonight. For the Memphis Grizzlies, who have questionable tags on Santi Aldama. John Moran, I did see pop up questionable earlier today when he's dealing with an illness. And guys that are out for sure are Jake LaRivia, Marcus Smart, and Vince Williams Jr. and Cam Spencer. Grizzlies laying 10.5 here at home, Scott, hosting the Pelicans. What are your thoughts on this one?
So I bet this overnight. I like the over in this game. I know I got it at 242.5. Now it's at 244. These teams don't guard anybody.
Yeah.
Now, Zion's not going to play. Shocker. But still, the point is the Grizzlies are right now the #1 offense in the league in terms of points per game. They actually passed Cleveland. They're #1 in pace as well over the last 10. New Orleans, though, quietly been good. New Orleans has scored 119-plus points in 6 straight. So I see a lot of points in this game. I know Zion, once again, is going to be missing, but you are looking at DeJounte. McCollum's had some solid runs lately. Trey Murphy's been very good. I see points. Memphis wants to play fast. They played about a month ago. Game got into the 250s. I know the totals looks intimidating, but I think Memphis probably scores 130-plus in this game. So I'll go with the over. I just see points because Memphis tries to outpace teams, kind of like what we saw from the Pacers last year. They want to go up tempo. Ja's going to play. They're going to run. New Orleans wants to run too. Give me a bunch of pace. Give me the over.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable laying this number with the Grizzlies, even though how bad the Pelicans have been. Pelicans obviously do have extended rest here because their game against the Bucks the other day did get postponed because of snow. So they've had about 3 days off fully before their game here. They are also on the front leg of a back-to-back here. They'll play the Hornets like we mentioned earlier tomorrow. Yeah, I agree with you. We've talked a lot about this Memphis team throughout the season. You mentioned it. They love playing with pace, putting up points. So Grizzlies team total over, even without, if Ja doesn't play tonight. They're just so used to playing without Ja that they can still put up the points. Pelicans on the first leg of a back-to-back this season, 2-8 ATS. Grizzlies have been okay in those spots, but when they have the rest disadvantage, they've actually been pretty good, have the Memphis Grizzlies. First leg of a back-to-back as well this season, the Grizzlies are 5-1 to the over, so just gives it a nice trend there towards the over in this game. So I see a lot of points. I'm with you. Grizzlies team total over. Gun to my head, since we do pick every side end total here, I would still go with the Grizzlies here, minus 10.5. I would expect probably a big Zach Edey game here for the, at least on the boards for the Memphis Grizzlies here, Scott. But anything else for Pelicans Grizzlies?
Yeah, once again, I feel like New Orleans is that bad on the road. I probably would consider Memphis, but they did mess around a lot in that fourth quarter against Charlotte. So I am concerned a bit about a back door. Does concern me a bit, but I don't mind Ja double-double. I think if we're picking Memphis to score probably 130, Ja's assists should be solid in this game.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go for that, but I'm just picking Memphis to get whatever they want offensively. New Orleans, I think, might lose comfortably, but if that's the case, they can still score a decent amount in garbage time and the game goes over. So yeah, I'll just go with the over and move on. It would be Grizzlies or pass, but I prefer the total.
Morant has scored 25 or more points in 6 out of the last 7 head-to-head meetings against the Pelicans. So if he does end up playing here tonight, I think that it could, like you mentioned, it could be a big game. Just want to see if they have his points prop listed here for tonight. Yeah, it's sitting at 22.5. So I think this could be a pretty big game here for Ja Morant, scoring-wise and hopefully getting assists as well. All right, so that is the last game of the Friday card. Only 3 games before we have a big schedule on Saturday. Let's get into our lock and dog here, and then we'll put together our Underdog Fantasy entry for Friday night. Scott, you want to lead us off?
Sure. So for the lock on the show, thought about going with the over in that Grizzlies game, but I don't know if I actually want to do it. I think I'll save that or something with that for my dog, actually. So for my lock on the show, what do I want to go with here? I don't have 2 plays in the same game, so I'm gonna have to stay away from the Memphis game.
NBA did us no favors.
They really did not. There's only 3 games.
Today,
I know.
at least.
It's really rough. You know what? I actually thought about doing something for my dog in this game. I might actually do something with my lock in this game instead. I'm gonna go with Ja. I'll go with his over 7.5 assists as my lock at -125. Feels very low. I know that he's had a couple games with 7 against the Pelicans lately, but the potential's still there. We're picking Memphis to score 130 points, basically.
Yep.
I think Ja's assist should be worth something. Now, you can get double-double at +190, so I thought about going with that instead, but I think I'll just take the assists instead. Give me Ja to go over 7.5 assists. -125 is my lock. I think that line is too low. For my dog on the show, I wanted to go with something with Mark Williams, but we have no lines, so I'm going to have to try to get a bit creative here. Let me just see if there's any props that I'm tempted by in this matchup. You know what? I mentioned it before. I think it could be a good spot for Avdia in particular. I will go with Avdia over 8.5 rebounds at +145. He's had 10+ rebounds in 3 of the last 4. Think that he's got a solid matchup. Double-double, by the way, is +300 if you want to take that approach. But he had 14 rebounds last game against Charlotte. I think it's a good matchup for him. You can get gritty with it once again with the double-double. I'll play it safe. Give me Avdia over 8.5 rebounds at +145 as my dog.
All right. For my lock, I am that number or those numbers make me nervous, but I think it's Cavs team total over against the Sixers. I know Sixers have been struggling at least a little bit defensively over the past couple, or I should say at least over the last 5 games, but we talked about it earlier this season that they did drop 126 against the Sixers in their building, or in Cleveland, I should say, earlier this season. Sixers, the worst defensive rated team over the last 5 games, have a net rating of -17.3 here. So I would expect a big game here from Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. So I'll take the Cavs team total over. That number currently on DraftKings is sitting at, let me scroll down, 119.5 here. So I think they could get 120 in this game against the Sixers. So I'll put that as my lock. For my dog, I wanted to do a Zach Edey rebounding ladder, but he just hasn't been playing a lot of minutes for the Memphis Grizzlies. I know he'd had 9 rebounds in the matchup earlier, but he did play about 20+ minutes in that game. So I'll have to probably pivot from that. Do I just go in the same game and just like Jared Allen?
There's only 3 games. You can do it.
Yeah.
I see people mentioning Edey stuff in the comment section.
Yeah, I do like Edey. Let me go back to his. I think he could have a big night rebounding because I know the Pelicans give up a lot of rebounds to that center position. So let's
Problem is Edey's minutes, because Edey only plays like 18 minutes a game now.
Yeah. I'll just still go with it. 9+ rebounds. It's at +145. And then you take it up from there. 10+ is at +220. 11+ is at +320. So if this turns into a blowout for the Grizzlies, maybe he gets more minutes. But I think at least if he gets at least in the realm of 19 to 20 minutes here tonight, I think that he can get those boards. He's been playing. He played 19 minutes in each of the last 2 games. He had 6 rebounds and 7 rebounds And then a matchup earlier this season against the Pelicans, he did play 27 in that game, so maybe that changed a little bit here tonight, but I'll go with that. I'm going to still play the over 6.5 rebounds, but obviously for the show purposes as a dog pick, 9+ rebounds starting there. It's at plus odds there. So I think I'll go with that for Zach Edey here tonight as my dog of the day. All right, Scott, let's put together our Underdog Fantasy entry here for tonight. Again, if you don't have an account already, do us a favor, get over there, create yourself an account, use our promo code NBA SGPN. You'll get a first-time deposit offer up to 50%, up to $1,000, courtesy of Underdog Fantasy. And yesterday, I know when me and Lonte put together the Underdog Fantasy entry, they had a 70% profit boost. So they always have these fun, give me pick'ems and profit boosts over on Underdog Fantasy. So get over there, come join the fun. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code NBASGPN. All right, Scott, where do you want to start here for tonight?
I gave out 2-player props. I don't know if you want to just recycle any of those.
I like Avdia. I was considering Avdia for one of my picks there as well for the show, so we can definitely throw him in. Do you want to just go rebounds, or do like a PR?
I'll just go rebounds.
All right. So they have.
I think it's a pretty low number for a guy that's had 10 plus in 3 of the last 4.
Yeah. So 7.5 is a number right now on Underdog Fantasy. It is 1.05x on the higher. So getting a little bit of boost on the odds here for tonight. So we'll go Avdia. What was the other one you mentioned?
I ended up going with Justice.
Yeah, I like Jaw's points and his assist here tonight. Let's see if they have Jaw listed or not. 7.5. It's at 0.92x, but we'll throw that in there.
I see JR mentioning Kamara assists at 1.5, which I actually like. He's had at least 2 assists in 6 straight. So I don't mind that. Played 34 minutes last game. I think it could be a good spot.
All right, we'll throw it in there. So we'll go higher on Kamara. It's at 0.84x. So
it's fine.
We're good with it. Since it's a Friday card, it's short. We'll get you guys set up for the weekend here. All right, so
what is there to do on Friday, by the way? We have 3 NBA games. You have no college football. You have no NFL. NHL card's not great either. What are people supposed to do? Am I supposed to interact with people?
Yeah, go on a date, Scott. Go on a date.
That sounds horrible. I was in the city this past weekend, but that was meeting up in my fantasy football league for our end of season dinner. Yeah, I don't know. I got to figure out something to do.
All right, so we may have to pivot from Ja because we just got an alert that he did not participate in shoot around.
Wait, who did not participate?
Ja.
Okay. Well, it's a good thing that you caught that because it means I'll have to give out another lock because that is probably a sign Ja might not play, which does kill some stuff here. So let me
do we pivot to Bane or do we pivot to Jalen Wells?
I would probably pivot either to Bane RA or I'd pivot to maybe Triple J if you want to go for his points, but damn, Ja really might not play. Okay, that kind of sucks.
So they have it off right now on Underdog, but let me see if
well, while you do that, I'm going to have to pull up, once again, another play for my lock, because it sounds like Ja might not actually play. So it's my fault, though. I put faith in Ja to actually suit up for once, so that's my bad.
So let's see how Triple J has actually done against the Pelicans. So last 5 head-to-head meetings, he scored 22 or more points. The matchup earlier this season, they played twice this season. He had 23 points and 33 points against them. And I want to say that 33-point game was without Ja.
Okay.
Let me double check here. Yeah, so Ja didn't play in that game. Desmond Bane had 18 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists. Or I'm sorry, Ja did play in that game. But Jaren Jackson still had a pretty big game. So I don't know if you want to pivot to Triple J.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, Triple J has been really good. So I'll go back to him there. I think, by the way, assuming Ja does not play in the game today, I'll go with Portland +5.
Okay.
That'll be my pivot lock. But once again, it depends if Ja plays or not.
Okay. So then we'll, at least for the Underdog, we'll put in Triple J's points to go higher. I still think that he can have a big game, even if it's with or without Ja in the lineup here tonight. All right. So that'll do it here for the Friday card. Only 3 games like we talked about on the schedule. Should be a fun weekend of sports, I should say, starting tomorrow with NBA, and then we have the conference championships happening in the NFL on Sunday. So there should be a fun weekend of sports before we're back next Monday, which I believe has 12 NBA games. So we'll get a pretty nice size schedule for the Monday card. Yeah, Michael mentioned, they just pulled all the projections and everything for the Grizzlies because, again, the Jaw news that he did not participate in shoot around literally right before we were about to wrap up here on the show. Scott, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, not really. Once again, it should be a pretty underwhelming card, to be honest, but money's money. So if we hit our props, it'll be fine. Check out the tennis show. I'm doing a bunch of tennis episodes for the Australian Open. Almost over. You have the women's final starting at about 3:30 in the morning Eastern time. I did an episode on that. I'll do an episode on the men's final probably later today. So keep that in mind, but doing tennis shows and stuff like that. So once again, other sports going on. Of course, you got the NFL. So you got the conference title games. Of course, Sean and Ryan do a good job of once again covering the actual matchups there, and looking forward to the actual NFL this weekend.
Yep, should be a lot of fun. Hopefully competitive games on Sunday for the NFL. So we'll find out who is going to be, in fact, playing for the Super Bowl in New Orleans in a few weeks. All right, we'll be back next week for the NBA Gambling Podcast.
I'm assuming you're doing a propcast, by the way, right?
Yeah, we're doing one later today for the conference championships with myself and Chris. Yeah, so about an hour and a half, about 1:30 Eastern time. Myself and Chris, if you guys want to tap in with us on the propcast, we'll give you our conference championship prop bet. So that one should be a lot of fun. And I'm sure since Chris is a Commanders fan, lifelong Commanders fan, he's definitely excited that his team is relative again and playing for a potential spot in the Super Bowl. So come join us 1:30 Eastern start time over on the propcast if you want to watch us live. But of course, we'll have the audio version as well on Spotify and Apple or wherever you do get your pods. Make sure you guys follow Scott over on the Twitter machine at Reichel Radio. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. Do us a favor, hit that like button on your way out, and do us a favor, leave us a rating and review for the NBA pod as well. Definitely would appreciate it if you guys can do that for us. All right, enjoy the games this weekend. Till then, good luck with your bets, and always remember to let it ride.